superpowers should change the entire world. They never actually seem to do that. Every one of these movies gives its world something that should turn all of civilization upside down, and every single time that world ends up looking exactly like the one outside your window. So, how can we solve that? Well, the answer is capitalism, and I'll give you 7 examples to prove it. So why does capitalism solve it all? Well, there's one rule: capitalism never breaks. The second something is worth money, somebody somewhere is already sprinting at it to make a buck. Doesn't matter what it is, if there's a dollar in it, people will do dumb stuff like buy patents and start selling for outrageous prices, or make dumb YouTube videos for that sweet ad ramp. Keep that in your head. Now look at what these superhero movies actually do with the #1 priority in life. Take one of the biggest superhero collateral damage mess thingies, the Battle of New York. Big hole in the sky, aliens everywhere, half of Manhattan flattened, Hulk going band for band with a giant space whale thing through an office block. End of the first Avengers. The city is cooked. Then you check back a couple movies later and it's fine? Not a brick out of place. Somebody hoovered up an entire alien invasion over the weekend and didn't think to mention who. Did the Avengers grab brooms? Did Strange do a little cleany-uppy spell? Is it like Voldemort? Ooh, we can't mention his name. I just mentioned it. Oh, crap. Any who's it's booze it's, I have no idea. It's just fixed, and that should bug you, because a flattened city in real life is the single biggest pile of money anyone's seen in a lifetime. Even Elon Musk wouldn't come close, though he'd probably start a construction company if New York was flattened every other week. Maybe he already has, well, I don't know. He has those small little, like micro tiny homes, right? Every construction firm on Earth will be drooling. Insurance companies would be having one big collective aneurysm. And the people? Man, oh man, I'd say they'd move out of those big cities to avoid further disasters. Whenever the world is under attack, aliens somehow collectively decide it has to be a big American city. I'm moving my ass to Madagascar, because I love those freaking trees. Those ones! Thick shafts, small on top, feels like home. Call me Eggstein. Wait a minute, what the hell am I talking about? So, does any of that show up on screen? Well, sometimes, just not often enough. Spider-Man Homecoming has the opening scene with a blokey Joe called Adrian Toombs running a little salvage crew, and he's landed the contract to clear out all the alien wreckage. Normal working guy, a few trucks, some guys, a family to feed. Then Tony Stark and the government roll up, spin their own cleanup outfit, and yoink the whole contract right out of his hands. Yes, capitalism! The little guy stamped flat by the richest man alive. Capitalism working exactly as intended, by the way. You're going to hear that a lot throughout this video. As a little revenge, Toombs keeps a stash of the alien tech he's already dug up, welds himself a flying suit in his garage, and becomes the villain of the film. So, when a superhero movie admits there's real money in the wreckage, capitalism kicks the door in immediately. And the film goes, nope, that fella's the baddie, throws his ass in prison and deletes the whole idea. Cleanup company? Never spoken again. New York? Spotless. Nobody, not once, asks who paid for it. Now before you comment it, yeah, I know, Toombs was also like hijacking Starky Stanky's plane, not exactly a saint here, not the point! The point is the movie saw the money, had a panic, and wrote it straight back out. Anyway, that's just tidying up the mess, which is even small compared to the other examples coming. Some of the powers could run the entire planet, and nobody bothered to plug a single one in. If you invented a small, clean little machine that spat out basically unlimited electricity, you would instantly become the most important human who ever lived. Like that controversial theory that we already know how to pull energy from the magnetic field that Nikola Tesla uncovered or something. And I'm leaving that as a question because I remember something vague about it, but maybe the government man-in-blacked me before making it public, so if you could do that, then you would definitely not be rich. Rich is underselling it. You'd own the future. Every oil company on Earth folds by Friday. That might be exaggerating, but some divisions would. Like your unlimited power gadgets would spread across just about every freaking part of the Earth. SpaceX, you could fly for infinity now. If electricity works in space, I don't even know. Cars, you could drive forever, though rednecks would still prefer their combustion engines, I think. Okay, maybe not just rednecks. You're really angry at me now in the comments, but I'm just making shit up on the spot, okay? With that tech, you'd have more money than every country put together and a statue on the moon and Uranus. Though realistically, you'd be taken out in your quote quote-unquote invention would never become reality. Now, Tony Stark builds exactly that, in a cave with a box of scraps! The arc reactor. First one keeps shrapnel out of his heart and runs the suit. Fine. But then Iron Man 2 rolls around and Tony straight up invents a brand new element in his basement with a homemade particle accelerator, because of course he does. And his daddy-o Howard on an old tape calls it the key to limitless clean energy. Maybe it's not there yet, as the suit still requires recharging and stuff, but if it's the key to limitless clean energy, Tony can make it. So, what does the smartest man alive, a literal billionaire arms dealer, do with infinite free power? He powers his house. And somehow, I really wish I was kidding, but I'm not. So yes, really, in Avengers, he bolts a big arc reactor on the Stark Tower and brags it's a beacon of clean energy that runs itself for over a year. The most valuable discovery in human history, used to keep the lights on in his penthouse so he can make cocktails on the balcony. He tries to patent the element, for God's sake, and wanted to call it Badassium, and while that is a fantastic name, that part might have been from the comics, so I'm not entirely sure if it's canon. But it's canon for me, and this is my video to make my point, so I'm gonna do it. Tony knows there's money here. He knows what a patent is. He does a little joke about it, and then never once shows you Stark Energy rolling these things out for the ordinary people. You're still paying an electric bill in a world where Tony Stark solved electricity over a decade ago. Even the villain gets closer to the point than the hero does. Loki takes over Stark Tower for the whole invasion, specifically because it got that clean, endless power supply. The bad guy looked at infinite free energy and went, yep, I'm taking that. Tony looked at it and went, nice, cocktails. This is a man whose entire personality is genius businessman. The business is sitting right there and he just does it. Because the moment Stark Energy shows up, his world stops looking like yours. That kind of kills the vibe. And that's one gadget in one pair of hands, a singular. What happens when it's a whole hidden country sitting on tech 1,000 years ahead of everybody else? Surely someone copies that. Surely. But no. That, my friends or viewers, whatever you consider yourselves, is Wakanda ta-ta-ta-ta-cha-cha-cha-cha. Otherwise known as Wakanda for those who don't have a strange incessant urge to make everything silly. Tucked away in Africa, pretending to be a poor little farming nation, secretly 1,000 years ahead of everybody else, with flying ships and trains that float, plus the healing tech there that would make hospitals cry like a lot. And it all runs on vibranium, the most valuable metal in the entire Marvel universe. Same stuff Captain America's shield is made of, as well as Thanos' big sword. I said sword. I think some say it's different. I'm saying it's vibranium. Let's pull in the sweet old capitalism on that stuff. If a country like that actually existed and the world found out, it's game over for everyone else. Every government and bad people like arms companies on Earth would lose their minds trying to get a slice of that pizza. Buy it, copy it, steal it, reverse engineer one flying ship in a garage in Nevada, maybe. Wakanda would be the richest, most powerful economy that has ever existed, selling the future to the whole planet at whatever price it felt like. So, at the end of Black Panther, T'Challa finally decides to stop hiding, stands up at the UN and goes, yeah, actually, we're not a poor farming country. We've got all this and we'd like to help. And then, nothing. Every movie after that, the world looks exactly like it did before. Same phones, same cars, same hospitals, same wars. Just the Avengers get some of that sweet old vibranium as far as I'm aware. And look, country just announced they are thousands of years ahead and happy to share, and the planet goes, oh, lovely, for you and the people in tight onesies we have posters of, and then not another nation copies a single thing. And look who the film hands the capitalist role to. Again, fella called Ulysses Claw, Clue, whatever, arms dealer, smuggler. Whole personality is that he looked at Wakanda and thought, that's a gold mine sitting under a load of people too polite to sell it. So he sneaks in, nicks the vibranium, bamium, and flogs it on the black market. He is the one character in the whole thing who treats this miracle like the trillion-dollar resource it obviously is. And what happens to him? Killmonger, well, he kills him, pun thing, and zips him in a body bag. You're seeing it now, right? Tomb saw the money, prison, Claw, Clue, me boo-boo, saw the money, body bag. Every time a character walks in and goes, hang on, this is worth a fortune, the movie treats them like a cockroach and steps on them. If the capitalists ever actually won, the world would change, and the world is not allowed to change. Well, there is that one time the capitalists won, actually, but I'll get back on it. First, one more thing about Wakanda, and I'm not talking about Shuri, but they can patch up a wound that should have left a man paralyzed in about a day. day, which actually brings me to the darkest stuff on this list. Okay, deep breath. It's gonna get grim. Forget gadgets and metal for a minute. These worlds can beat death properly, and that should be the single biggest thing that has ever happened to the human race. If somebody could genuinely reverse a fatal wound, regrow a limb, drag a person back from the screaming abyss who was already gone, that is worth more than any other discovery ever made put together. I mean, man, I would give everything I had so I could spend one more day with my dog. Just take him to the beach. See him get zoomies one last time. He was allowed 13 and a half beautiful years on this planet, which is a beautiful age for a black lab. And I miss you, boy. And I'll see you at the Rainbow Bridge someday. And I've added in some real photos of him to pay the good boy tax. Wait a second! Logic Logan getting emotional? What is this bullshit? Back to the gibberish! And back to the gibberish I descend. If death can be cured yet again, every hospital on the planet rebuilds itself around it. One confirmed resurrection at every church as well as funeral home has a crisis on the same afternoon. It would change what it even means to be alive and probably bring some new messiahs. Is that even a word? I don't know. Messiahs. Though maybe I'm over-exaggerating again and they can't really cure it, just treat fatal wounds that we currently can't. So how do these movies handle that? They use it once on a main character, off to the side, then I actually don't remember. So let's check. There's a machine called the Regeneration Cradle, built by a scientist called Helen Cho. It prints human tissue and grafts it onto you. Hawkeye takes what should be a fatal wound, gets shoved in the cradle, and walks out with brand new skin in about a minute. A minute! That machine on its own is the end of burn wards and transplant list and the entire injury half of medicine. Done! It would not have helped Jeremy's snow accident, though. What does the movie do with the most important medical device ever built? Uses it to grow a robot a body. Then Helen Cho basically evaporates out of the whole franchise. You never see that cradle in a hospital? Not once. Then there's Extremis from like Iron Man 3. A serum that regrows whole limbs in seconds. What's that worth to every amputee and every wounded soldier alive? And guess who's carrying it? Oh yes, a businessman. It's a fellow dude brochacho called Aldrich Killian, runs his own company, and as a true capitalist, he tries to sell it, sits Pepper Potts down, and pitches Extremis at her like a startup founder. You know where this is going. Killian's a villain, obviously. Tombs, prison, claw clue, body bag, Killian, Krillin, cooked! Having a business plan in the MCU is basically a capital offense at this point, and the reason never changes. If Extremis went on sale, if the cradle rolled out to real hospitals, the world fills up with regrown arms and people who don't stay dead, and honestly, that just isn't a world we can recognize anymore. If a death can be reversed, it doesn't mean anything. Try keeping anything emotional with that in mind on screen. But no, we're not getting into emotions anymore. We're talking about capitalism here, and supers will put a lot of people out of business, which is another downside. Like, the Flash. Everyone argues about how fast the Flash really is, whether he's quicker than Superman and all that. But forget the races, forget the lights, just think about what one guy who moves faster than you can blink could do with a completely normal Tuesday. A man that fast could be turned into a logistics company. He is the economy. Every parcel and delivery on the planet. All of it done before you finish your coffee. Amazon. Gonzo! Fire breaks out on the 10th floor. He's got everyone on the pavement before the alarm finishes its first beep. Ambulance stuck in traffic while somebody's dying? There are no ambulances anymore. There's just him and he's already at the hospital. Wait, hospitals wouldn't even... whatever! Okay? City needs cleaning before a hurricane. He empties it in an afternoon. Organs across the country is done before the cooler's even shut. One man makes shipping, couriers, most emergency services, big chunks of construction, and a fair slice of medicine completely pointless. So, what does the Flash's world do with the single most useful human being who has ever lived? It gives him a desk job. Oh, come fuck on. Seriously! Barry Allen spends his 9 to 5 as a forensic scientist, dusting for fingerprints in a lab, kind of working on cases that are investigating him directly, strangely enough. Remember how every other example had some businessman sprinting at the money? The Flash doesn't even get that. Not one person in his entire world looks at a man who could do literally everything instantly and thinks, hang on, there's a business in this. And the fact that they didn't do that is almost unpatriotic. I mean, come on, greed is eternal. That's how allergic these movies are to sweet, sweet capitalism. So the market won't touch them, and you'd think, all right, if the market won't, surely the people in charge would. Surely somebody in government looks at a world filling up with gods and speedsters and flying men and writes some actual rules for it. Somebody must. Well, they tried it, so what happened? Well, after New York got leveled, after Sokovia, after a mission in Lagos goes wrong and civilians die, the government of the world finally do the sensible thing. They go, right, we cannot just let these people flatten cities with zero oversight. So they draw up the Sokovia Accords. 117 countries sign it, the Avengers are put on a leash. And this is massive, super humongous ginormo. It's the biggest political idea the MCU ever had that served as the whole engine of the Captain America Civil War movie thing. It splits the team straight down the middle, and they beat the hell out of each other in an airport over it. And like Spider-Man shows up, and then there's other fighting, and then Iron Man says sign, and like Captain America goes like no, and then friendships are bad, and they kind of end. So after all that mumbo, what happened to the Accords? They just trailed off. The films just slowly stopped mentioning them. They were technically still the law years later in WandaVision, a background detail nobody wanted to touch, and the actual resolution, the way the single most important law in the entire universe finally got wrapped up. A lawyer mentions in a courtroom in an episode of She-Hulk that, oh yeah, those got repealed. One line in his show nobody really cared about, except for that thicky, like double watermelon She-Hulk be hiding back there. And that is the pattern repeating itself. It's the exact same move as Toomes, as Claw, as Killian. The government is just the other force that would reshape a world like this. Real rules, licensing, an entire system built around the fact that gods are walking around. But you just kind of can't keep them there. Every force that would really change this world just doesn't hold up for longer. Quick educational example. There would have been world events that shaped laws like we know them. I'm not glorifying this in any way, shape, or form, but changed everything around airports and security. A superhero would have stopped that. Same goes for other world events that change stuff. Which brings us back to a promise I made you ages ago, or years. I said there was one place, exactly one, that let the money win and made the world change. The Boys. Because of course it's The Boys. So, in The Boys, superheroes are real. And the very first thing that happens is a company grabs them. It's called Vought. And Vought looked at people with superpowers and did the thing every other movie is too scared to show. It went, whoa, these are products. So in this world, superheroes are a business, top to bottom. Movies, merch, sponsorship deals, theme park rides. The big hero team, the Seven, spend their meetings arguing about contract renewals and who's getting the better toy line, like footballers haggling over image rights. Vought sells the power as a brand, runs every hero's public image like a marketing department, and then goes for the real money, getting supers written into law as military weapons so we can rent them out to the governments for war zones. And I, for one, I dig it! This is what a superpowered world actually looks like the second you let money into the room. Not God-saving cities out the kindness of their hearts. A corporation squeezing every drop of profit out of the most powerful beings alive, covering up the bodies and running a glossy ad campaign over the top. It's a deliciously delectable cake of deception, wouldn't you know? The Boys is one of the most talked about superhero stories over the last decade. Maybe it was because of their recent ending, but I'm not going there. I'm going another route. It asked the exact question this whole video's been asking. What happens when this stuff is real and somebody monetizes it? The world changed, and that changed world is the entire show. It's not alone either. The Incredibles let it happen too, just without the capitalism. And yes, I'm talking about them again. Supers there cause enough collateral damage that people start suing them. The lawsuits pile up and the government makes being a superhero illegal. 85% of people vote for it. A whole society reacted to supers and rearranged itself around them, which is exactly why the world feels lived in instead of frozen. Not the movie, I'm talking about the thing. And then there's Watchmen, which goes the furthest of the lot. One godlike hero, Dr. Manhattan, with his blue fleshy exterior, he exists, and the world is unrecognizable because of it. He wins the Vietnam War in a couple of months. Nixon's still president in the 80s because the war went so well they scrapped the term limit. Manhattan science hands America electric cars decades decades early, so the entire oil economy is different. Again, those might have been for the comics. Costume heroes got so out of hand, the government straight up banned them with the law. See what all three have in common? The powers build things around themselves, companies, laws, a whole different history. The superpower becomes part of how the world actually runs. But no. Usually, every superhero movie hands its world something that could change everything, and then makes very, very sure it changes nothing. The second these powers stop being a cool fight scene and start being infrastructure, arc reactors in your house, a Flash running to the post office, secure for death on shelf at a fucking Walgreens, vibranium in your little blown up hoopty Toyota Camry, and the superhero stops being special. He's just another part of the system. So they freeze the world. They keep it looking like the one outside your window, so the hero stays the main character in it. And every time somebody wanders in and sees the money, they are the villain. Oh yeah. You'll happily believe a man can fly because that's easy. The thing you never should have believed in is that nobody in that entire world once ever tried to sell it. And if you think that's the biggest thing these movies quietly get away with, you're not ready. There's a power sitting in this genre that breaks the story worse than any of this. And once I show it to you, you won't be able to unsee it in anything you watch again. It's right there. Go on and click it.